Imagine being stripped of absolutely everything, your home, your family, even your very name, and yet somehow finding a profound reason not just to survive, but, well, to truly live. How is that even remotely possible?
It's a question that really cuts straight to the core of our humanity, doesn't it? A kind of riddle that history, and maybe our own personal struggles too, constantly throw at us.
Yeah, exactly. And today we're going to journey into a really remarkable and, I think, enduring answer to that very question.
We are, it's a deep one.
Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today we've got a very special Success Happiness book talk for you. We are immersing ourselves in a timeless classic, a book that genuinely continues to reshape how we understand purpose. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
And this isn't just a book you read, it really feels more like an experience. It resonates so deeply. You mentioned sales, over 4 million copies in English alone, which is just staggering.
It really is. And Carl Rogers, a giant in psychology, he didn't mince words. He called it one of the outstanding contributions to psychological thought in the last 50 years. High praise indeed.
And its impact, well, it just shows no sign of diminishing, does it? What makes this work so uniquely powerful, so undeniably authoritative, is where it comes from. It emerges straight from the crucible of lived experience.
Right. Viktor Frankl wasn't just some academic in an ivory tower. He was a distinguished professor of neurology and psychiatry at the University of Vienna Medical School. Yes, but crucially, he was a Holocaust survivor.
He endured 3 harrowing years in concentration camps, places like Auschwitz and Dachau, names that still evoke such horror.
And that personal journey, those, well, unimaginable trials, they give him a perspective few others could ever possess. He wasn't just theorizing about resilience, he was demonstrating it through his very survival.
That's the core of it. And from that crucible of suffering, he went on to found a whole new school of thought, logotherapy, often called the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy, following Freud and Adler.
It's incredible. What's really remarkable, I think, is that he initially wanted to publish this book anonymously.
Yeah, that's right. He wasn't after personal fame or anything like that. His deep conviction was simply to show that, quote, life holds a potential meaning under any conditions, even the most miserable ones.
Wow.
He actually believed the book's bestseller status wasn't really about his writing. He saw it more as an expression of the misery of our time, a sign that humanity was, and maybe still is, desperately searching for meaning.
That's a powerful thought. So to really grasp Frankl's insights, we have to kind of go where he went, into the unimaginable. But his book, it's not a typical historical account, is it? Not about the great horrors in a detached way.
No, not at all. He bravely invites us into what he called the multitude of small torments. He focuses on the raw, profound psychological reactions of the average prisoner. It's less about the sheer scale of the atrocity and more about the intricate landscape of the human mind under that kind of extreme duress.
So the inner world.
Precisely. Illuminating the inner world, the psychological struggle, not just the external brutality. He describes that first phase upon admission to the camp as shock.
Right, the shock. And he mentions this delusion of reprieve.
Yeah, new arrivals often clung to that. They'd see prisoners who looked okay. Maybe they were part of the receiving squads, often better fed for a time, and think, oh, maybe it won't be so bad. Maybe we're just going to a factory. It was, a desperate grasp for hope.
Understandable, but then the reality hits.
Hard. He recounts the selection process, just a flick of an SS officer's finger, left or right.
Left meant.
Left meant the gas chambers, the crematoriums, the terrifying chimney at Auschwitz. He notes that maybe 90% of a transport could be sent left within hours of arrival. The sheer brutal finality of it. It must have been just absolute psychological obliteration.
Unimaginable. And that's where the stripping of identity really began.
And earnest, yes.
Yeah.
Documents, names, possessions, all gone. You became a number. Tattooed on your skin, sewn onto your rags. Frankl himself, his number was 119,104.
Reduced to a number.
It wasn't just administrative. It was a deliberate, calculated act of dehumanization. The immediate impact, beyond the obvious trauma, was this profound sense of non-existence, like you just didn't matter anymore.
Yet, almost unbelievably, Frankl observed something strange emerge in those first moments. He called it grim humor and a cold, detached curiosity. That sounds so counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But it was an early coping mechanism. It allowed prisoners to sort of observe their fate with this bizarre objectivity, almost like watching a movie happen to someone else.
How did that even work?
They'd make these dark jokes, like after having their heads shaved, well, at least real water came out of the showers this time. It gave them a fleeting moment of self-detachment, maybe a tiny shred of internal control in a world where they had none.
A tiny island of agency. And the physical adaptations he mentions are just astonishing, too. Healthy gums despite, severe vitamin deficiency. Sleeping soundly next to someone snoring loudly.
Yeah, it really underscores that quote from Dostoevsky he mentions, "A man can get used to anything." It just makes you wonder about the sheer limits of human adaptability, both physical and mental.
Absolutely. So from that initial shock, prisoners often moved into a second phase, right? This deep, pervasive apathy.
That's right, but Frankl saw this apathy differently, not as weakness, but as a crucial emotional death, a protective shell.
A shell against what?
Against the constant beatings, the injustice, the relentless suffering. He talks about watching a boy's frostbitten toes being picked off almost casually, or seeing prisoners take clothes from a body that was still warm, all without showing emotion. It was a necessary shutdown, a numbness to survive.
It's a profound insight, isn't it? That our minds can create such intense defenses, sometimes at the cost of our emotional range. Makes you think about, well, less extreme forms of apathy maybe we use today against overwhelm or stress.
It's a relevant thought. In the camps, this apathy narrowed focus intensely. Survival basics, food, the endless talk about it, the fight over tiny bread rations warmth, avoiding punishment.
And he noted the sexual urge was generally absent.
In those all-male camps, yes, survival needs just completely overrode it. But what about their minds? He observed what he called a cultural hibernation, a profound retreat from intellectual life, which sounds incredibly bleak.
Totally bleak. Were there any sparks? Any exceptions to that mental shutdown?
Surprisingly, yes. Two main exceptions stood out. One was the constant buzzing of political rumors offering either desperate hope or deeper despair, depending on the rumor.
Okay, grasping at straws.
Kind of. But the other, more profoundly, was a sincere, deep religious interest. People held improvised prayers, services in secret corners, even inside locked cattle trucks during transport. It was like stripped of everything external, the spirit turned inward.
Seeking solace, meaning.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really fascinating, I think. For many sensitive individuals, their spiritual life, far from being crushed, actually deepened.
That's incredible. Frankl's own experience highlights this, right? Communing with the image of his wife during those awful forced marches.
Yes, beautifully. Despite the physical agony, the cold, the exhaustion, he'd have these intense mental conversations with his wife, visualizing her, hearing her answer. And he had this profound realization. The salvation of man is through love and in love.
That love transcends physical presence, even life and death.
That was his conviction. It could sustain you. It was a cornerstone of his observations. He also found that even in that desolate landscape, moments of unexpected joy or intense appreciation for beauty could break through.
Like what?
He talks about seeing the Salzburg Mountains glowing at sunset from a moving prison carriage, or hearing a desperately sad tango played on a violin in the hut one evening. These tiny glimpses of beauty, art, nature, they were like little windows, offering a vital refuge from the horror, moments of profound internal freedom.
So even in hell, there were moments of grace, of beauty.
It seems so, and Frankl observed something crucial about survival. It wasn't just physical strength, far from it.
What was it then?
Those who had a why, a future goal, a purpose, something to live for, were the ones most likely to survive.
A why. He contrasts this sharply with those who lost hope, right?
Yeah.
Like that story of the composer, F.
Yes, the man who dreamt he'd be liberated by a certain date. When that date passed and freedom didn't come, he fell ill and died almost immediately. It's a stark illustration of that mind-body connection. Hope, or the loss of it, could literally mean life or death.
As if the spirit just gave up. Nothing left for me here.
It seemed that way. And Frankl himself, he used a powerful mental strategy. He would consciously detach himself. He'd imagine himself, in the future, standing on a warm, well-lit lecture platform, lecturing about the psychology of the concentration camp, looking back on it all objectively.
Wow, so he was using his future purpose to rise above the present suffering.
Exactly. Observing it, analyzing it, rather than being consumed by it. It was a conscious act of finding a why in the midst of the terrible how.
Which brings us right back to that Nietzsche quote he loved. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow.
The guiding principle. And it flips the script, doesn't it? It wasn't about what they expected from life anymore. It was about what life expected from them.
A call for right action and right conduct. Fulfilling your unique task, whatever the circumstances. That's a profound shift in perspective. Puts the responsibility squarely back on us.
It absolutely does. Instead of asking, what's the meaning of my life? Frankl suggests the better question is, what is life asking of me right now? And this idea of purpose, of being called to something, well, that leads us directly into logotherapy.
Logotherapy. Okay, so we know it's meaning-centered, but for listeners maybe familiar with other psychological schools, how does it really stand apart from, say, Freud or Adler? What's the core difference?
Good question. At its heart, logotherapy, from the Greek logos meaning, is truly meaning-centered psychotherapy. So unlike Freud's focus on the pleasure principle,
Right, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain.
or Adler's focus on the will to power, striving for superiority, Frankl identified something else as primary.
The will to meaning.
The will to meaning as our deepest, most fundamental drive. That's his assertion. It's not just about what feels good or what makes us feel strong or important. It's about what gives our lives purpose, what makes it all feel worthwhile.
And there's data backing this up, isn't there? That Johns Hopkins study.
Yeah, quite compelling. Nearly 8,000 students surveyed, and a huge majority, 78%, said that finding a purpose and meaning to my life was more important to them than making a lot of money.
There really says something about human motivation beyond just the material.
It certainly does. And Frankl saw a problem in modern society related to this. He called it a mass neurosis of the present time, which he termed the existential vacuum.
Existential vacuum.
Yeah.
Sounds empty.
It is. It's that widespread feeling of inner emptiness, of meaninglessness that he saw permeating modern life. A big challenge for mental well-being, even today, maybe especially today.
Why did he think this was happening?
Well, he saw a kind of twofold loss. First, we've lost many of the basic animal instincts that used to guide behavior for survival. And second, the traditions that used to provide structure and values are diminishing rapidly.
So we're kind of adrift. Not sure what instincts or traditions to follow?
Exactly. He said modern man often isn't sure what he should do, or sometimes even what he deep down wishes to do. It leads to this void.
And what fills that void?
Often conformity, just doing what everyone else does, or sometimes totalitarianism, doing what others tell you to do, surrendering your individual search for meaning.
And this vacuum shows up in other ways, too.
Definitely. It manifests as boredom, what Frankl called Sunday neurosis, that feeling of depression or emptiness when the busy week stops and you're left with yourself. It's also strongly linked, he argued, to widespread issues like depression, aggression, addiction.
He even did that study on unemployment neurosis, didn't he?
Yes, where giving unemployed people unpaid but meaningful volunteer work actually alleviated their depression, even though their economic situation hadn't changed at all. It just shows the sheer power of having a purpose.
Okay, so the will to meaning is key, and the existential vacuum is a real problem. How then, according to Frankl, do we actually find or discover meaning? He outlined 3 main ways, right?
That's right, 3 main avenues. The first one is probably the most obvious: creating a work or doing a deed.
Achievement, contribution, making something, doing something valuable. Makes sense.
The second avenue is experiencing something or encountering someone. This isn't just about thrills, it's about experiencing goodness, truth, beauty. Think about appreciating nature, art, culture.
And encountering someone, that sounds like relationships.
Critically, yes, and especially experiencing love. For Frankl, love wasn't just an emotion. It was the ultimate way to grasp another person's innermost core, their essence.
Grasp their essence.
Yes, and more than that, to enable them to actualize their own potential. When you truly love someone, Frankl believed, you see their highest potential, maybe even before they see it themselves, and you help them reach it.
Wow, that's a powerful view of love. Enabling potential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so work, deeds, and experiences love. What's the third avenue? This one feels particularly relevant given his experiences.
It is. The third avenue is the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. This is so crucial. Frankl isn't glorifying suffering. He's very clear. If suffering can be removed, like a curable illness, or an injustice that can be fought, then the meaningful thing to do is to remove it. But if the suffering is truly unavoidable, like an incurable disease, or the conditions in the camp, then meaning is still possible. Not because of the suffering, but in spite of it. The meaning comes from the stand you take, the attitude you choose.
Choosing your attitude towards something you can't change.
Precisely. He called this tragic optimism.
Tragic optimism. That sounds like a paradox.
It is. It's the ability to remain fundamentally optimistic about life's meaning, despite what he called the tragic triad: pain, guilt, and death. These are unavoidable parts of the human condition.
So how do you remain optimistic?
By transforming them. transforming unavoidable suffering into a human achievement, a testament to the spirit, transforming guilt into an opportunity for change and growth, transforming life's transitoriness, the fact that it ends, into an incentive for responsible action now.
That reframing is powerful, like the story he tells about the grieving elderly doctor.
Exactly. The doctor was devastated, utterly crushed by his wife's death, couldn't find meaning in his continued existence. Frankl asked him, "What would have happened if you had died first?" The doctor realized his wife would have suffered immensely. Frankl then reframed it. "You see, doctor, such suffering has been spared her, and it is you who have spared her this suffering, but now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her."
And the doctor saw meaning in his pain, suddenly.
He saw meaning in his survival, in his mourning. It wasn't just pointless pain anymore, it was the price he paid for the love they shared. A final act of service to her, in a way. He could stand up, shake Frankl's hand, and leave with a different perspective. It turned suffering into a meaningful sacrifice.
That's incredibly moving. It really shifts how you think about unavoidable hardship, doesn't it? It's less about escaping the pain and more about choosing your stance within it. And logotherapy actually has practical tools to help people do this, like paradoxical intention.
Yes, paradoxical intention is a fascinating technique. It's based on two observations Frankl made. First, that fear often brings about the very thing we're afraid of, like trembling because you fear trembling.
Right, the anxiety cycle.
And second, that hyperintention, trying too hard to do something, often makes it impossible, like trying too hard to fall asleep.
Okay, so how does paradoxical intention use that?
It encourages the patient to, paradoxically, intend or even try to do the very thing they fear, often with humor.
So give me an example.
Okay, the classic one. A patient with a severe fear of perspiring in social situations. Frankl advised him, the next time he felt it coming on, to consciously decide to show people just how much he could sweat. To say to himself, "I only sweated a quart before, but now I'm going to pour at least 10 quarts.
He told him to try to sweat profusely.
Seriously.
Seriously. Or the bookkeeper with severe writer's cramp. He was told, instead of trying to write neatly, to try to produce the worst, most illegible scrawl possible. Show them what a horrible scribbler you are.
And what happened? This sounds wild. It often worked remarkably quickly. The sweating patient, after one session and trying this a few times, found his phobia, which he'd had for years, disappeared within a week. The bookkeeper, the moment he tried to scribble illegibly, found he couldn't, his hand relaxed, and the cramp vanished.
Wow. Why does that work?
It breaks the cycle. By intending the symptom, you detach from the fear of it. You introduce humor and distance. As Gordon Allport said, the neurotic who learns to laugh at himself may be on the way to self-management, perhaps to cure. It leverages that unique human capacity for self-detachment.
That ability to step outside yourself and see the absurdity. Okay, that's paradoxical intention.
Yeah.
What about the other technique, dereflection? How does that work?
Dereflection is aimed at countering hyperreflection, basically. Too much self-observation, too much focus on oneself or one's problems.
Like constantly monitoring your anxiety levels.
Exactly. Or obsessing over achieving a certain goal, like sexual performance, which then becomes impossible because you're trying too hard. Dereflection works by reorienting the patient's attention away from themselves and towards something meaningful outside of them.
So shifting the focus outward.
Precisely. Towards a specific task, a mission, a vocation, or crucially, towards another person, maybe focusing on giving pleasure rather than getting it, for example. By shifting the focus off the symptom or the self-conscious desire, the problem often dissolves because the anxious self-monitoring stops. It's about getting out of your own head and engaged in the world.
That makes a lot of sense. Both techniques seem to tap into this core idea in Frankl's work about freedom and responsibility.
Absolutely. He fundamentally challenged the idea that we are just products of our environment or biology, what you might call pandeterminism.
He didn't believe we were completely determined?
No. He emphasized that man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself. Crucially, he believed we always possess the freedom to take a stand toward any conditions whatsoever.
So it's not freedom from conditions, you can't always escape bad circumstances, but freedom to choose your attitude within those conditions.
That's the ultimate human freedom, he argued. And the concentration camps, in their own horrific way, were the proving ground for this. They stripped everything away and revealed the person underneath.
Revealing what he called the two races of men.
Yes. Not races in the usual sense, but the race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. And these, he stressed, were found everywhere.
In all groups, prisoners and guards alike.
Absolutely. Decency and indecency cut across all lines, nationality, background, prisoner, or guard. It was about the individual's inner decision, the stand they took, even in small ways.
And those small acts, they mattered immensely, didn't they? Like the foreman sharing a piece of bread.
Hugely. Frankl said it wasn't just the bread, it was the human something offered with it. Those small, unexpected gestures of kindness proved that human kindness can be found in all groups, and showed that even there, people could choose decency over brutality. It offered a glimmer of hope.
It all builds towards this really powerful conclusion he draws, doesn't it? This kind of warning, or maybe a call to action for humanity.
It really is. It resonates so deeply, especially today, he wrote. Since Auschwitz, we know what man is capable of. And since Hiroshima, we know what is at stake.
Wow.
Chilling. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? We know the depths of inhumanity we can sink to, and we know the immense power we now hold, the power for destruction. It underscores just how vital it is for each of us to consciously choose decency, to choose meaning, to choose our attitude every single day. The stakes are incredibly high.
What an incredibly powerful journey through human resilience, the relentless search for meaning, and ultimately the enduring power of the human spirit. Viktor Frankl's man's search for meaning, it just reminds us so forcefully that even when facing the unimaginable, we keep that ultimate freedom.
That freedom to choose our attitude, yeah. To find purpose and to live a life filled with meaning, no matter what.
His work isn't just, a historical document. It feels like a timeless, incredibly practical guide for anyone grappling with life's challenges, which is, let's face it, all of us at some point.
It really is a powerful reminder that our ability to say yes to life, in spite of everything, as he put it, that's maybe our greatest human achievement, our most profound triumph.
So as you, our listeners, reflect on your own why, and maybe think about how you can apply some of these incredible insights to your own pursuit of success, happiness. We really want to thank you for joining us on this unforgettable book talk.
We truly hope this discussion has helped deepen your understanding and maybe inspired you to live an even more meaningful and purposeful life. It's certainly given me a lot to think about again.
Me too. Definitely make sure you subscribe to our channel for more discussions and talks like this one, designed to help you deepen your understanding and live a more meaningful life. Thanks for diving deep with us today.